The morning sun cast long shadows across the concrete floor of the Riverside Animal Shelter as Linda Martinez unlocked the front door. She had been the shelter manager for 12 years, and in all that time, she had never met a dog quite like Rex. The German Shepherd sat in kennel number 7, his amber eyes watching her every movement as she walked down the hallway with her clipboard and coffee cup. Rex was beautiful. There was no doubt about that. His black coat gleamed with health, and the tan markings on his chest and legs were perfectly symmetrical. His ears stood tall and alert, and his intelligent eyes seemed to take in everything around him. At 3 years old, he should have been the perfect dog for any family looking for a loyal companion. But Rex had a problem that kept him from finding a home. Nobody could touch him. Linda remembered the day Rex arrived 8 months ago. Mrs. Dorothy Hamilton. His elderly owner had passed away in her sleep, and her nephew brought Rex to the shelter. The nephew explained that his aunt had loved Rex dearly, but he lived in an apartment that did not allow pets. Rex had lived with Mrs. Hamilton since he was a puppy. Losing her was clearly hard on him. From the very first day, Rex made it clear that he wanted nothing to do with human contact. When anyone reached toward him, he would back away to the far corner of his kennel. If someone persisted, he would growl low in his throat, not aggressively, but as a clear warning to stay away. The sound was enough to make most people step back. Quickly, Dr. Kevin Walsh, the shelter's veterinarian, had tried many times to examine Rex properly. The dog would allow Dr. Walsh to look at him from outside the kennel. But the moment the vet stepped inside, Rex would press himself against the back wall, his whole body tense with fear or anxiety. The only way Dr. Walsh could give Rex his shots or check his health was to sedate him first, which was stressful for everyone involved. The shelter staff had tried everything they could think of to help Rex warm up to people. They offered him his favorite treats, spoke to him in gentle voices, and gave him plenty of time to adjust. Some volunteers spent hours sitting quietly near his kennel, hoping he would eventually come closer. But Rex remained distant, polite, but untouchable. Linda walked to Rex's kennel now, as she did every morning. Rex stood up when he saw her coming, his tail giving a small, careful wag. This was progress, she reminded herself. When Rex first arrived, he would not even look at the staff members. Now he would watch them and acknowledge their presence, but that was as far as it went. "Good morning, Rex," Linda said softly, keeping her voice calm and steady. She had learned that sudden movements or loud sounds made Rex nervous. The dog tilted, his head slightly listening to her voice, but he stayed in the middle of his kennel, maintaining a safe distance from the front bars. Linda filled his water bowl and slid his breakfast through the small opening at the bottom of the kennel door. Rex waited until she stepped back before approaching his food. He ate carefully, always keeping one eye on Linda as she made notes on her clipboard. His eating habits were healthy, and he kept his kennel clean, but these positive traits were overshadowed by his refusal to let anyone near him. As the morning progressed, other staff members arrived and began their daily routines. Rex watched them all with the same cautious attention he gave Linda. When Jake Morrison, one of the younger staff members, walked by carrying a mop and bucket, Rex moved to the back of his kennel and sat down, waiting for the noise to pass. Around 10 o'clock, the first visitors of the day arrived. The shelter was always busier on weekends, with families coming to look for new pets. Linda watched hopefully as a young couple stopped in front of Rex's kennel. The man read the information card attached to the front bars. "Look at this one. Honey," he said to his wife. "It's German Shepherd, 3 years old, house-trained, good with other dogs. He's gorgeous." The woman smiled and approached the kennel. "Here, boy," she called, extending her hand toward the bars. Rex immediately moved to the far corner of his kennel, his ears flattened slightly against his head. The couple tried calling to him for several minutes, but Rex would not come closer. Linda approached them with a heavy heart. She had seen this scene play out dozens of times over the past 8 months. "I should tell you about Rex," she began, and explained his history and his difficulty with being touched. The couple listened politely, but Linda could see the disappointment in their faces. They thanked her and moved on to look at other dogs. Throughout the day, several more families stopped to admire Rex. Each time, the result was the same. Rex. would retreat to his corner, and the families would eventually choose a more social dog. Linda understood their decisions, but it broke her heart to see Rex passed over again and again. By afternoon, the shelter was quiet again. Rex lay on his blanket in the back corner of his kennel, his head resting on his paws. He looked tired, and Linda wondered if the constant stream of strangers was wearing on him. She made a note to ask Dr. Walsh about possibly moving Rex to a quieter area of the shelter. As closing time approached, Linda did her final walk through the kennels. Most of the dogs were settling down for the night, but Rex was still alert, watching her movements. She stopped in front of his kennel and looked at him thoughtfully. "You're a good dog, Rex," she said quietly. "I know you are. We just need to find the right person for you, someone who understands that you need time and patience." Rex's ears twitched at the sound of her voice, and for just a moment, Linda thought she saw something softer in his amber eyes. Then he lowered his head back down to his paws, and Linda continued her rounds. That night, as Linda locked up the shelter and headed home, she thought about Rex lying alone in his kennel. She had seen many difficult cases over the years, but something about Rex touched her deeply. He was not mean or aggressive, just deeply cautious and afraid to trust. She hoped that somewhere out there was someone who would have the patience to earn Rex's trust and give him the loving home he deserved. The shelter fell quiet as darkness settled over the building, and Rex curled up on his blanket, another day of waiting behind him. Danny Cooper sat in the back seat of Mrs. Brooks' car, staring out the window at the passing trees. He did not speak much these days, and today was no different. His foster mother, Helen Brooks, glanced at him in the rearview mirror and smiled. Gently. "We're almost there, Danny," she said in her soft voice. "I think you're going to like the shelter. They have lots of different dogs there." Danny nodded but did not reply. He was 10 years old, but sometimes he felt much older. Life had been hard for him over the past 2 years, ever since his parents died in the car accident. He had lived in 3 different foster homes before coming to stay with Mrs. Brooks 6 months ago. She was kind to him, kinder than anyone had. Been in a long time, but Danny still felt like he was floating through life without really belonging anywhere. Mrs. Brooks was 53 years old and had been a foster mother for many years. She had helped dozens of children over the years, but Danny was different. He was quiet and polite, always said please and thank you, and never caused any trouble. But he seemed to carry a sadness that was too big for such a small boy. She rarely saw him smile. He had not made any friends at his new school. The idea to visit the animal shelter had come from Danny's social worker, Ms. Patricia Lee. During their last meeting, she had suggested that caring for a pet might help Danny feel more connected and give him something to focus on besides his sadness. Many children find comfort in animals, Ms. Lee had explained to Mrs. Brooks. Dogs especially can provide unconditional love and companionship. It might help Danny open up and start healing. Mrs. Brooks thought it was worth trying. She had noticed that Danny seemed more relaxed when he saw dogs in the neighborhood. He never asked to pet them, but he would watch them play in their yards with something that looked almost like longing in his eyes. The Riverside Animal Shelter was a long, low building surrounded by trees. As they parked the car, Danny could hear dogs barking inside. The sound made him feel nervous. He had always been sensitive to loud noises, and the barking seemed very loud to him. Mrs. Brooks noticed his hesitation. "It's okay, Danny. The dogs are just excited because they want to find families. They're not angry or scary." Danny followed Mrs. Brooks through the front door of the shelter. The lobby was bright and clean, with pictures of happy families and their new pets covering the walls. A woman with gray hair and a friendly smile came to greet them. "You must be Mrs. Brooks," the woman said. "I'm Linda Martinez, the shelter manager. We talked on the phone yesterday." Mrs. Brooks shook Linda's hand. "Yes, thank you for making time for us today. This is Danny, my foster son." Linda looked down at Danny with kind eyes. "Hello, Danny. I'm very glad to meet you. Are you excited to see some dogs today?" Danny looked at the floor and nodded slightly. He was not sure if excited was the right word. He felt nervous and hopeful at the same time, which was confusing. Linda led them through a door into the main part of the shelter. The hallway was lined with kennels on both sides, and the barking got much louder. Danny stayed close to Mrs. Brooks, his shoulders hunched up around his ears. The noise made him want to cover his ears, but he did not want to seem rude. "We have about 30 dogs right now," Linda explained as they walked. "All different ages and sizes. Some are puppies, some are older, some are very energetic, and some are more calm." In the first few kennels, Danny saw dogs jumping up against the bars, wagging their tails wildly and barking for attention. One golden retriever was spinning in circles with excitement. A beagle was howling along with the other dogs. Danny felt overwhelmed by all the energy and noise. Mrs. Brooks noticed Danny's discomfort. "Are there any quieter dogs?" she asked Linda.
Ow.
Danny gets a bit overwhelmed by too much noise and activity. Linda nodded with understanding. "Of course. Let's keep walking." And we have some calmer dogs toward the back. They passed more kennels with enthusiastic dogs. Dalmatian mix was doing flips to get their attention. 2 terriers were yapping excitedly. A Labrador was pawing at the kennel door and whining.
Ow.
Danny felt sorry for all the dogs, but their energy made him feel tired. "Don't worry," Mrs. Brooks whispered to Danny. "We'll find the right dog for you. Sometimes the best matches are the quiet ones." As they walked further down the hallway, the dogs became a bit calmer. Danny saw an older Cocker Spaniel lying peacefully in her kennel, and a gentle-looking mixed breed who was sitting quietly and watching them pass. But still, none of them felt right to Danny. He could not explain why, but he felt like he was waiting for something specific. Near the end of the hallway, Linda slowed down. "Now, I want to tell you about a special dog we have here," she said. "His name is Rex, and he's been with us for 8 months. He's a beautiful German Shepherd, very intelligent and healthy. But he has some trust issues. He doesn't like to be touched, and he can seem standoffish at first." Danny looked up at Linda with interest. This was the first time all day that he had really paid attention to what an adult was saying. "He's not mean or dangerous," Linda continued. "He's just very cautious. He had one owner his whole life, an elderly lady who loved him very much.
When?
She died. It was very hard for him. He's been waiting for someone who understands that he needs time and patience." They stopped in front of kennel number 7. Danny looked inside and saw Rex lying on his blanket in the corner. The dog was beautiful, with his shiny black coat and intelligent amber eyes. But what struck Danny most was how still and quiet Rex was. While all the other dogs had been barking and jumping, Rex was completely calm. Rex looked up when he noticed them standing there. He did not bark or come to the front of the kennel like the other dogs had done. He simply watched them with his careful, thoughtful eyes. Danny felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt a connection, an understanding. This dog was like him, Danny realized. Rex was sad and careful and did not trust easily. Rex had lost someone he loved, just like Danny had. Rex was waiting for someone to understand him, just like Danny was. For the first time in months, Danny stepped forward on his own, without Mrs. Brooks guiding him. He moved closer to Rex's kennel, and something amazing happened. Rex stood up and walked slowly to the front of his kennel, stopping just a few feet away from where Danny stood. The boy and the dog looked at each other through the bars, and for the first time since coming to the shelter, Danny felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Danny stood very still in front of Rex's kennel. The German Shepherd was only a few feet away from him now, separated by the metal bars. Rex's amber eyes looked directly into Danny's brown ones, and neither of them looked away. The moment felt different from anything Danny had experienced since coming to the shelter. Mrs. Brooks and Linda watched in amazement. Linda had seen hundreds of people visit Rex over the past 8 months, and Rex had never come to the front of his kennel for any of them. He always stayed in the back corner, keeping his distance. But here he was, standing close to the bars, calm and alert, focused completely on this quiet boy. "This is very unusual," Linda whispered to Mrs. Brooks. "Rex never approaches visitors like this." Danny did not hear the adults talking. All of his attention was on Rex. The dog was even more beautiful up close. His coat was thick and shiny, and his ears stood up straight and proud. But it was Rex's eyes that captured Danny's attention. They looked sad and careful, just like Danny. Felt most of the time. Slowly, Danny knelt down on the concrete floor in front of the kennel. He did not reach through the bars like other visitors had tried to do. He simply sat there, making himself smaller and less threatening. Rex watched this movement with interest, tilting his head slightly to one side. Then Rex did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He lay down on his side of the kennel with his head close to the bars, facing Danny. It was the first time in 8 months that Rex had chosen to lie down when strangers were visiting him. Danny saw what Rex was doing. Without thinking about it, he lay down too. He stretched out on his side on the cold floor, mirroring Rex's position. Now they were both lying down, facing each other through the metal bars, with only a few inches separating them, the shelter hallway, which had been filled with barking and noise all day, seemed to grow quieter. Even the other dogs seemed to sense that something special was happening. Mrs. Brooks felt tears coming to her eyes as she watched the boy and the dog lying peacefully together. "I have never seen anything like this," Linda said softly. Rex looks completely relaxed, and it was true. For the first time since arriving at the shelter, Rex's body was not tense with worry. His breathing was slow and steady, and his eyes, while still watchful, had lost their guarded expression. He looked at Danny with something that resembled trust. Danny felt a peace he had not experienced in 2 years. Lying there on the floor looking at Rex, he felt like he had found something he did not even know he was looking for. The dog understood him without words. Rex knew what it felt like to lose someone important and to feel alone in the world. They lay there together for 10 minutes, neither moving nor making a sound. Mrs. Brooks and Linda stood quietly, not wanting to disturb this precious moment. Other staff members walked by and stopped to stare in wonder at the sight of Rex being so calm and trusting with a visitor finally. Danny sat up slowly, being careful not to make any sudden movements that might startle Rex. The dog lifted his head and watched Danny's every movement. But he did not back away or show any signs of fear. Danny said softly. It was the first word he had spoken since entering the shelter. His voice was quiet and gentle, and Rex's ears perked up at the sound of his name. Mrs. Brooks stepped forward carefully. "Danny, this is wonderful. Rex really seems to like you." Danny looked up at his foster mother and nodded. "He's sad like me," he said simply. "He lost someone he loved." Linda felt her heart break a little at Danny's words. This young boy understood Rex in a way that no adult had been able to. Both of them had experienced loss and were trying to figure out how to trust again. "Danny," Linda said gently, "would you like to know more about Rex?" Danny nodded eagerly. Still sitting on the floor near the kennel, Linda knelt down beside him. Rex lived with an old lady named Mrs. Hamilton for his whole life. She loved him very much, and he loved her too. When she died, Rex was very sad. He came to live here, but he has been afraid to get close to people because he does not want to be hurt again. Danny listened to every word. "Like me," he said quietly, "I do not want to be hurt again either." Mrs. Brooks knelt down on Danny's other side. "That's right, sweetheart. You and Rex both know what it feels like to lose someone special. Maybe that's why you understand each other so well." Danny looked back at Rex, who was still lying near the front of the kennel watching them. "Can we visit him again?" Danny asked. "I think he needs a friend." Linda smiled. "Of course you can visit him again. In fact, if you and Mrs. Brooks are serious about possibly adopting Rex, we usually recommend several visits first. It helps. The dog and the new family get to know each other, really?" Danny's eyes lit up with hope. "We could adopt him?" Mrs. Brooks looked at her foster son's face and saw something she had not seen in months. Danny looked interested and excited about something. She had been hesitant about adopting a dog with behavioral issues. But seeing the connection between Danny and Rex changed her mind. "We would need to learn more about taking care of Rex," Mrs. Brooks said carefully. "We would need to make sure it would work out for everyone. But yes, we could consider it." Danny turned back to Rex with a big smile, the first real smile Mrs. Brooks had seen from him since he came to live with her. "Did you hear that, Rex? You might be able to take you home." Rex's tail gave a small wag. It was barely noticeable, but Linda saw it and gasped. He wagged his tail, she whispered. Rex just wagged his tail. For the next half hour, Danny sat by Rex's kennel, sometimes talking softly to the dog, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence. Rex stayed near the front of the kennel, the entire time, occasionally moving closer to the bars when Danny spoke to him. When it was time to leave, Danny stood up reluctantly. I will come back tomorrow, he promised Rex. I will come back every day until we can take you home. Rex watched as Danny and Mrs. Brooks walked away down the hallway. For the first time since Mrs. Hamilton died, Rex felt something he had almost forgotten. He felt hope. As they drove home, Danny was more talkative than he had been in months. He asked Mrs. Brooks questions about dogs and what they would need to do to get ready for Rex. Mrs. Brooks answered all his questions, amazed at the change. In her foster son, that night, Danny went to bed earlier than usual, excited about visiting Rex again the next day. And in kennel number 7 at the Riverside Animal Shelter, Rex curled up on his blanket and slept more peacefully than he had. In 8 months, dreaming of the quiet boy who understood his sadness and gave him hope for a better tomorrow. The next afternoon, Danny could hardly sit still in school. All day long, he kept thinking about Rex, waiting for him at the shelter. When the final bell rang, he was the first one out of his classroom. Mrs. Brooks was waiting for him in the parking lot, and she smiled when she saw him, hurrying toward the car. Someone is excited today, she said, as Danny climbed into the back seat. Can we go to the shelter now? Danny asked, buckling his seatbelt quickly. I told Rex I would come back today. Mrs. Brooks started the car. Of course we can go, I called Linda this morning and told her we would be there around 4 o'clock. The drive to the shelter felt much longer today than it had yesterday. Danny watched the clock on the dashboard and counted the minutes. When they finally pulled into the parking lot, Donnie was out of the car before Mrs. Brooks had even turned off the engine. Inside the shelter, Linda was waiting for them with a warm smile. Donnie, Rex has been different today, she said. Or Dunny. He keeps looking toward the front of the shelter, like he's waiting for something, or someone. Danny's face lit up with happiness. He was waiting for me? I think so, Linda said. He's been much more alert today, and he ate all of his breakfast, which he doesn't always do. They walked down the hallway toward Rex's kennel. Danny noticed that the other dogs were barking as usual, but today the noise did not bother him as much. He was focused on getting to kennel number 7. When they reached Rex's kennel, Danny saw that the German Shepherd was already standing at the front, waiting. Rex's tail began to wag as soon as he saw Danny, and this time the wag was much more noticeable than the day before. Hi, Rex, Danny said softly, kneeling down in front of the kennel. I came back, just like I promised. Rex moved even closer to the bars, so close that his black nose was almost touching the metal. He looked directly at Danny and made a soft, whining sound, not sad or scared, but almost like he was trying to talk. Danny sat down on the floor in the same spot where he had sat the day before. Rex immediately lay down too, mirroring Danny's position just as he had done yesterday. But today, Rex scooted even closer to the front of the kennel, until his nose was pressed against the bars. Look how close he's getting, Mrs. Brooks whispered. To Linda, yesterday he was more cautious. Linda nodded in amazement. This is incredible progress. Most dogs take weeks or months to build this kind of trust, if they ever do. Danny reached into his backpack and pulled out a book. I brought my reading homework, he told Rex. Mrs. Brooks said it might be nice if I read to you. Rex tilted, his head listening as Danny opened the book. It was a story about a boy and his adventures in the woods. Danny began to read aloud, his voice quiet and steady. Rex settled down comfortably, his eyes never leaving Danny's face. As Danny read, something wonderful happened. Rex gradually relaxed completely, his head resting on his paws, his breathing slow and peaceful. Other visitors walked by, but Rex ignored them completely. His attention was focused only on Danny and the sound of his voice. After reading for 20 minutes, Danny closed the book. That's all for today, he told Rex, but I'll read more tomorrow. Rex lifted his head and looked at Danny expectantly, as if he understood every word. Then he did something that made everyone gasp. He stretched his neck forward and gently touched his nose too. Danny's fingers through the bars. It was the first time Rex had initiated physical contact with anyone since arriving at the shelter 8 months ago. Danny felt the cool wetness of Rex's nose against his skin, and tears of joy filled his eyes. "He touched me," Danny whispered. "Rex touched me." Mrs. Brooks wiped tears from her own eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. He trusts you." Linda was writing notes on her clipboard with shaking hands. "This is a breakthrough moment," she said. "Rex has never done anything like this before." Danny very slowly moved his hand closer to the bars, being careful not to make any sudden movements. Rex watched his hand carefully but did not pull away. When Danny's fingers were close enough, Rex sniffed them gently, then touched his nose to them again. "Good boy, Rex," Danny said softly. "You're such a good boy." The sound of praise, Rex's tail wagged harder. His ears were perked up and forward, and his whole body language showed that he was happy and comfortable. The next day, Danny came to visit Rex again after school. This time he brought a small bag of dog treats that Mrs. Brooks had bought at the store. Linda had said it was okay to give Rex treats as long as they did this carefully. "Would you like a treat, Rex?" Danny asked, holding up the bag so Rex could see it. Rex's ears perked up with interest. He had seen other people try to give him treats before, but he had always been too nervous to take them. Today felt different. Danny took one small treat from the bag and held it near the bars. Rex sniffed it carefully, then very gently took it from Danny's fingers with his teeth. He was so careful not to bite Danny's fingers that he barely touched them. "Good boy," Danny said, smiling widely. "You took the treat." Rex crunched the treat happily, then looked at Danny hopefully for another one. Danny laughed, a sound that Mrs. Brooks had not heard from him in many months. "I think he likes the treats," Danny said, giving Rex another one. By the fourth day of visits, Rex was taking treats easily from Danny's hand and allowing Danny to touch his nose and the top of his head through the bars. Danny would sit by the kennel for an hour each day, sometimes reading, sometimes just talking to Rex about his day at school. "My teacher, Mr. Davis, gave us a math test today," Danny told Rex on Thursday. "I think I did pretty well." And at lunch, a boy named Peter asked if I wanted to play basketball with him. I said maybe tomorrow. Rex listened to every word, his intelligent eyes focused on Danny's face. When Danny mentioned playing with another boy, Rex's tail wagged as if he was happy that Danny was making friends. On Friday, the 5th day of visits, something amazing happened. Danny was reaching through the bars to pet Rex's head when he accidentally dropped his pencil. It rolled toward the kennel, and Danny reached down to pick it up. As Danny's hands stretched toward the pencil, Rex moved forward and very gently licked Danny's fingers. It was such a soft, careful touch that Danny almost did not feel it at first. Then he realized what had happened. "Mrs. Brooks," Danny called excitedly. "Rex licked my hand. He really licked my hand." Mrs. Brooks hurried over and saw Rex still standing close to the bars, his tail wagging steadily. "Oh my goodness, Danny, that's wonderful." Linda came over to see what the excitement was about. When Mrs. Brooks told her what had happened, Linda shook her head in disbelief. 8 months, she said. 8 months of Rex refusing to let anyone touch him, and now look at him. Rex was now allowing Danny to scratch behind his ears through the bars. His eyes were half closed with pleasure, and he was making a soft rumbling sound that was almost like purring. "I think he's ready," Linda said to Mrs. Brooks. "If you're serious about adopting Rex, I think he's ready to try going home with you." Danny looked up at Mrs. Brooks with hopeful eyes. "Can we, Mrs. Brooks? Can Rex come home with us?" Mrs. Brooks looked at her foster son, who was happier than she had seen him since his parents died. She looked at Rex, who was gazing at Danny, with obvious love and trust. She thought about how both the boy and the dog had been healing together over the past week. "Yes," she said finally. "Let's bring Rex home." Danny hugged Mrs. Brooks tightly, something he had not done since coming to live with her. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you so much." Rex seemed to sense that something important was happening. He stood up and wagged his tail, looking back and forth between Danny and Mrs. Brooks, as if he understood that his long wait was finally coming to an end. Saturday morning arrived bright and sunny, and Danny woke up earlier than usual. Today was the day Rex would come home with them. He had barely slept the night before, thinking about everything they would do together. Mrs. Brooks found him in the kitchen at 7 o'clock, already dressed and eating breakfast. "Someone is excited," she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "But the shelter doesn't open until 9 o'clock. Danny looked at the clock on the kitchen wall. "It's 2 whole hours," he said. "What if Rex thinks we're not coming?" Mrs. Brooks sat down beside Danny at the table. "Rex knows you'll come back. You've visited him every day this week. He trusts you now." Those 2 hours felt like the longest 2 hours of Danny's life. He tried to watch television, but he could not focus on the shows. He tried to read a book, but he kept reading the same page over and over. Finally, Mrs. Brooks suggested they go to the pet store to buy supplies for Rex. At the pet store, Danny carefully chose a red collar and a matching leash, picked out 2 food bowls, one for water and one for food. Mrs. Brooks helped him select the right kind of dog food and some toys. Danny chose a rope toy and a tennis ball, thinking Rex might like to play fetch in their backyard. "Don't forget a bed," Mrs. Brooks reminded him. They found a large, comfortable dog bed with soft padding. Danny imagined Rex sleeping on it in his bedroom. The thought made him smile. When they finally arrived at the shelter at 9 o'clock, Linda was waiting for them with all the adoption papers ready. "This is a big day," she said, smiling at Danny. "Are you ready to take Rex home?" Danny nodded eagerly. "I've been ready since yesterday." They walked down the familiar hallway to kennel number 7. All the other dogs were barking and excited as usual, but Danny only had eyes for Rex. The German Shepherd was standing at the front of his kennel, and his tail started wagging the moment he saw Danny. "Hi, Rex," Danny said softly. "Today is the day you're coming home with us." Linda unlocked the kennel door, something that had not been done in 8 months except for cleaning and veterinary visits. Rex looked at the open door, but did not move. He seemed uncertain about what was happening. Danny knelt down and held out his hand. "It's okay, Rex. You can come out." Rex took one careful step toward the door, then stopped. He looked at Danny, then at Mrs. Brooks, then back at Danny. Linda held her breath, hoping Rex would not panic at this crucial moment. "Come on, boy," Danny said gently. "It's time to go home." Slowly, Rex took another step, then another, walked carefully out of the kennel and immediately went to Danny's side. Danny reached out and petted Rex's head, and Rex leaned into the touch, enjoying the contact. "Good boy," Danny said, his voice full of pride. "You did it?" Linda clipped the new red leash to Rex's new red collar. Rex sniffed the leash curiously, but did not seem bothered by it. Stayed close to Danny, as if the boy was his anchor in this new and uncertain situation. They walked slowly down the hallway, toward the exit. Rex looked around at all the other dogs, many of whom he had been neighbors with for months. A few of the dogs barked at him, but Rex ignored them. His attention was focused on staying close to Danny. At the front desk, Linda gave Mrs. Brooks all of Rex's paperwork, including his medical records and vaccination certificates. "Call me if you have any questions or concerns," she said. "The first few days can be an adjustment period." Danny looked up at Linda. "Thank you for taking care of Rex until I could find him." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for giving him a chance, Danny. You and Rex were meant to find each other." Outside in the parking lot, Rex stopped and looked around. He had not been outside the shelter building in 8 months. The sunshine felt warm on his fur and he could smell grass and trees and all the interesting outdoor smells he had almost forgotten. Mrs. Brooks opened the back door of the car. Rex looked at the car with uncertainty. He had only been in a car once before, on the sad day when he was brought to the shelter. "It's okay, Rex," Danny said, climbing into the back seat. "You can sit with me." Rex carefully stepped up into the car and settled down on the seat next to Danny. Danny put his arm around Rex's shoulders. Rex rested his head on Danny's lap. As Mrs. Brooks started the car, Rex stayed calm and relaxed. Trusting that Danny would keep him safe, the drive home took 20 minutes. Rex looked out the windows with interest, watching the world go by. When they pulled into the driveway, Mrs. Brooks' house, Rex's ears perked up. This was going to be his new home. Danny led Rex around the backyard, showing him where he could run and play. The yard was large and surrounded by a fence, perfect for a dog. Rex sniffed everything carefully. Exploring his new territory, when Danny threw the tennis ball, Rex chased after it and brought it back, dropping it at Danny's feet. "You know how to play fetch?" Danny said excitedly. "That's awesome." Inside the house, Mrs. Brooks showed Rex where his food and water bowls would be kept in a corner of the kitchen. She put his new bed in Danny's bedroom, and Rex immediately went over to sniff it. After a moment, he lay down on the bed and sighed contentedly. That first evening, Rex followed Danny everywhere. When Danny did his homework at the kitchen table, Rex lay down beside his chair. When Danny watched television, Rex curled up on the floor next to the couch. When it was time for bed, Rex settled down on his new bed in Danny's room and fell asleep quickly. Over the next few weeks, both Danny and Rex continued to heal and grow together. Danny started talking more at school and made his first real friend, a boy named Peter, who loved hearing stories about Rex. Rex learned to trust Mrs. Brooks too, and would greet her with a wagging tail when she came home from work. 3 months after Rex came home, Danny was playing in the backyard with his new friend Peter. Rex was running back and forth between the two boys, bringing them the tennis ball and enjoying the game. Mrs. Brooks watched from the kitchen window, amazed at the transformation in both Danny and Rex. Danny was laughing and running around the yard, looking like the happy 10-year-old boy he was meant to be. Rex was confident and playful, showing no signs of the fearful, withdrawn dog he had been at the shelter. They had both learned to trust again, and in doing so, they'd saved each other. One evening, as Danny was getting ready for bed, he sat on his bed next to Rex and scratched behind the dog's ears. "I'm glad I found you, Rex," he said softly. "Or maybe you found me." Rex looked up at Danny with his amber eyes full of love and contentment. He had found his home, and Danny had found his best friend. Sometimes the most broken hearts know exactly how to heal each other. And sometimes the best families are the ones that choose each other. 6 months later, Danny and Rex had become local celebrities at the elementary school. Danny's teacher had invited them to visit the classroom to talk about pet care and responsibility. Rex sat calmly beside Danny as he explained to his classmates how important it was to be patient with animals who had been hurt or scared. "Rex taught me that love takes time," Danny told his class. "But when you find someone who really understands you, it's worth waiting for." And in the back of the classroom, Mrs. Brooks wiped away a happy tear, proud of both her boys and the amazing journey that had brought them all together.